This shooting happened as guests were still, some of them trickling into the event. Our cameras captured the moment that attendees first heard those shots on the red carpet. You'll see them scatter. I'm going to show you the video. I want to warn you, though, that this may be disturbing for some viewers. Now, a short time later, I'm talking seconds, security and law enforcement rushed in to figure out where the shots were coming from.
Where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? Upstairs, left. Where's it coming from?
Shots were fired at the White House Correspondents Dinner here in Washington earlier this evening. The U.S. President, the First Lady, as you see here, rushed from the stage of the main ballroom as gunshots rang out from just outside the room. Cabinet members and journalists, myself among them, who were in the room, safe as well. The interim Washington, D.C. police chief says the suspect charged, and here's the video there. You see him racing through a security checkpoint, exchanged gunfire with law enforcement officers before he was subdued. The suspect armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives.
It's jarring to see all those different angles that you played out, people on the red carpet, people in the room, just how everyone experienced this. I walked through that area maybe about 20 minutes before all of this happened and had gotten seated, was coming from my shift at the White House, but got seated, was talking with our group there, and when this happened, there was just a lot of confusion. Everyone shouting at each other to get down, get safe, and stay down. But panic in this room, of course, is the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the First Lady. They're all there on that stage. And then you have so many cabinet members, prominent members of the administration, and journalists, as well as their guest there as well. So a moment of panic. Everybody kind of has this moment of relief when they are able to get off the ground and still trying to figure out what's going on. We were told that the show would likely go on in some capacity. You then see this post from Trump himself saying that he wants the show to go on, but that he's going to follow safety and security protocols. Not long after that, though, there was another post from him where he said, law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol, which we will do immediately.
I want to bring in Associated Press photojournalist Alex Brandon, who was at the dinner. He took some photos of the chaotic scene, as well as the moment that law enforcement grabbed their suspect. Alex, welcome to CNN. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Alex, before we're glad you're okay. Before we go through some of your shots, I wonder if you could just set the scene. I've had the pleasure of speaking to many photojournalists, and they always tell me how they instinctively grab their cameras anytime they hear, potential gunfire. What was that moment like for you?
I was with my colleagues at the table. I had arrived late. I literally poured half a glass of wine, had one sip, and was talking to my colleague, and I hear what sounds like to me is gunshots. And immediately people begin to duck under tables, and he and I just stood straight up and pulled out my phone. I wish I'd had my camera. I pulled out my phone and immediately started taking pictures of the president, because in that moment, my job is to keep my eye on the president.
Yeah. We're showing some video from another journalist in the room just to set the scene, but let's show our viewers some of the stills from your phone camera. And perhaps you could just tell me a little bit about what you were seeing. I know we're going to show a couple of the shots that are directly focused on the stage. And almost when you go through your photos frame by frame, you see how the drama unfolds. You see the moment that Secret Service agents in their black tie jump on the stage one moment, and then in the next frame, the president is gone.
Absolutely. I could see the president, I'm in the back of the room, so he's a little smaller than I would like to have him in the frame if we're going to fix things. But I see the Secret Service agents come out, and then I also hear other agents, and I'm not sure who they are, but they're law enforcement. And afterwards, I've subsequently understood that those were for other protectees, not the president, as they're going to their protectees down the center aisle. Then the counter assault team comes out. Those are the officers that look like they're in SWAT uniforms with long guns and helmets. Those guys come out, and that's when I know that we have a legitimate incident.
And we know so many people, their first view of the suspect was in one of the shots that you snapped. Obviously, eventually the president would share some stills as well that the president received on his truth account. But when you see the photo and you see authorities basically hovering over a suspect, hands tied behind his back, when did you come upon this scene, and what were you hearing from your vantage point?
That was absolutely fascinating. I went out that doorway to a set of stairs that went up to a landing, and then there was another, it kind of split and went to more stairs. And I got part of the way up the stairs, and I could see them putting yellow crime scene tape up, which I've seen for decades in my career. So that's when I knew that whatever had happened right there. And so I went a little higher on the stairs, and there was a gentleman recording video next to me, and he says, "I think I can see him on the floor." And he said, "Scoot over this way a little bit." And so I scoot over a little bit, and sure enough, there underneath a Mylar blanket was the suspect. He was able in his video to see that the suspect's head was moving, because we'd heard rumors that the suspect was fatally shot, later learning that he was indeed alive. But to come up the top of those steps and be able to zoom in and see the suspect I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned.
I'm joined now by two experts to help us unpack all of this. CNN Senior National Security Analyst Julia Kayyem and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Chief Charles Ramsey. Thank you both for being with me this morning. So, Chief, you know the security of this hotel better than pretty much anybody here. What are the challenges over securing this hotel, and how was someone with a gun able to get so close to the president?
Well, first of all, good morning. And one of the biggest challenges is when you have an event like this in a hotel, then it presents additional challenges because you have people that are already staying there. They have a legitimate reason to be on the premise. That's one of the biggest hotels, if not the biggest in DC, about 1,100 rooms or so, rather than have it at a convention center or someplace where you do not have that particular problem with screening. However, I've been to events where POTUS has appeared in a hotel. Usually, as soon as you get off the elevator, there's going to be some screening that's going to take place for individuals to get near where that event is taking place. So they're going to have to go through this with a fine-tooth comb to find out how that individual got to that particular level, even though it wasn't on the same exact level as the ballroom. But just to get that close is something of great concern. They're going to have to review. And when they do this again, if they do it there, I guarantee you there'll be a different security posture in terms of how they handle the guests that are there. That look at the people who are coming in, and that's understandable. But for security reasons, they're going to have to tighten that up.
And Chief, just to stay with you for 1 second, Chief, to follow up on the hotel specifically, because of course this is where Ronald Reagan got shot. There are two entrances to this hotel. Should the Washington Hilton be hosting events like this, or is it too vulnerable?
Well, I mean, the Secret Service doesn't make that decision. I mean, the Correspondents Dinner folks would be the ones that would make that. But again, I have concerns when it's in not only that hotel, any hotel, because of the security concerns. I mean, you have a convention center right there in Washington, D.C. that could be used. But again, that's a matter of choice. But even if they choose to have it there, and there's nothing wrong with having it there other than making sure you have to make certain security allowances being in a hotel, they're going to have to tighten it up because this just can't happen. And again, this wasn't a guest that did it. This was someone who was already staying in the hotel. And it's important to remember that.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. President Trump has acknowledged this is just one of many times, several times, a gun has been brought close to him. Listen to what he said last night at the White House.
They did the job, in my opinion, a much better job than Butler. Butler had one weak spot that we all know about. Somebody should have been up there.
Juliet, what's your sense about why this keeps happening?
It's hard to know for this instance. We're less than 24 hours out. It has the makings, just to remind people, as we learn more about the suspect of the 2017 Las Vegas shooting over the country music from the Mandalay Hotel, where the suspect or the killer checks in before. So they're sort of protected in terms of planning. So what they want to do now is look at two different components. The first is, was the risk environment different for tonight? And we've heard some reporting about, had the suspect been saying things and what they're going to learn stuff from the house in California. So you want to look at the risk environment. We are also in war. I'm not saying those things are related, but obviously the risk environment, the threat environment is bigger here. The second question I have in this review, sort of to the question you asked, why is this still happening, is were the security features the same, more or less? And right now we're just getting reporting from people in the room, and so we will find out, did they ratchet it up in any way, or was it less? As the chief said, when you have a sort of fluid, complex environment, you have the public, you have the street, you have the guest, the hotel guest, and then you have a major event. That's really, really tricky to get to close all the vulnerabilities. And I think that's actually what President Trump was talking about.
And Juliet, just to stay with you, what does this investigation into this suspect look like right now?
So it's gonna get to motive, and we'll be super careful right now because we really want to get this right. The complaint or the charges against him now do not have a motive yet, so they're going to investigate that in Los Angeles. I find it hard to believe that someone who has planned that much weaponry and who and makes the trip across and gets into the hotel room hasn't left an ideological trail. And then you're going to get to the questions of, so what was that motivation? Was he supported by anyone else? And then, of course, what charges would you eventually bring to them? I'm not going to speculate here what those charges are. Any attack against the president, or just as we see here, just the institution of our government, media, and all the top levels of government is a political attack, and absolutely wrong, regardless of any atmospherics or motive or anything like that.
And Chief, just very quickly, how do you see this investigation playing out? What are your big questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions, but first of all, as Julia said, we don't have a motive yet. This is a very high-profile event. Now, most people are assuming this was an attack on the president. We don't know that. This could have just been random. When you have an event this large, the fact that you do anything is going to get international coverage. And remember, we have the 250th anniversary coming up. We got World Cup coming up. Any event like that, of that magnitude, anything is going to generate the kind of publicity that some person with ill intent would want to take advantage of. And so that's another layer of complexity that we not only have with this event, but with events coming up this year.